Thank you, everyone, for joining today's OneDrive Office Hours, wherever it is you're tuning in from. I'm Rob Nunez, Product Market Manager for SharePoint and OneDrive. We are aware that there have been some technical issues today, which we apologize for. We know folks have registered for today, but might have not received the join link. So please, if you are having any issues, Stephen has provided the link. So if you know any folks that are having some issues joining, please share that link with them so they're able to access today's call. But we are currently looking into ensuring that this bug is fixed for our next topic next month. So again, apologies on that end, but we'll make sure that we have that resolved for next month. So before we get into today's agenda, just a quick reminder that this meeting will be recorded. And as attendees on this call, we do expect a respectful, inclusive, and engaging experience for all of our participants. And after this call is wrapped up, we will have the on-demand video available to rewatch for today's content within a few days. So we will keep you all up to date on when that's ready to watch and be able to consume the content at a later date. So another reminder of some of the recent blog posts that have come out the last couple of weeks. We have our latest Sync Up podcast around OneDrive Sync with Stephen Rice, Arvind Mishra, and Gaia Karini. And we also have our 2 blog recent updates for editing grid view for document libraries and some exciting updates and features for OneDrive users on Mac OS. So if you haven't had a chance to read the blogs, head over to our tech community. The blogs have a ton of great content to dive into. And make sure you look out for some of the blogs that are coming out this month by either going straight to the tech community itself, or you can use the link that's on screen to go directly to the latest blog post that we have posted on our tech community channel for easy access as well. And don't forget that the Microsoft 360 conference is quickly approaching. So May 6th through the 8th in Las Vegas. You definitely don't want to miss out on a ton of great sessions we have in store across Microsoft 365 and the chance to not only hear, but engage with our execs on site. We'll, of course, have Jeff Teeper, our very own Jason Moore, and Adam Harmis will be there as well. And I'm sure they're super eager to engage and interact with you also. Register today if you haven't, and all of the information that you need is on that AKA link that you see on your screen as well. So with that, let's get into today's agenda. So first, I'm excited to welcome Stephen Rice. So Stephen has been part of our office hours for a while, but he is carrying the torch from Irfan and will be part of our monthly cadence going forward. Irfan, of course, is still close. He'll still be supporting like the rest of our product team does on office hours. So feel free to engage with him in the chat as usual. But Stephen will be covering our roadmap going forward as we go into future topics. So Stephen, happy to have you on board. And then we'll get into today's topic, which is unlicensed OneDrive accounts. Great to have Trent back here with us, and he is joined with some more experts to answer your questions during our Q&A section of today's call. So without further ado, let's get our call kicked off and have a great discussion. So over to you, Stephen.
Yeah, thanks, Rob. Excited to be here, normally here, but looking forward to talking to you all today. Looking at the roadmap, no major updates compared to our last office hours. I'll call out a couple of features that are kind of particularly interesting or important that have shipped or coming down the line. First up is improvements to the delete confirmations for shared content inside of the OneDrive Sync experiences. This is a place where we've heard lots of feedback, and I know the team's been working hard to integrate that into the product, make it a little bit easier, make sure your content stays safe and secure. As we look ahead, kind of coming in the next 3 months, there's a swath of amazing features coming around Copilot. Maybe not a surprise for everyone, particularly interested in things like Q&A on images, Q&A on meeting recordings, and improved functionality around Word files. We've also got some improvements coming around add shortcuts. That's a topic that comes up quite often. We're going to be talking about kind of KFM and some of the sync features next month's office hours, which we'll talk about at the end of today. But in this particular update, we're looking at adding the site name and owner name to the shortcuts to make it a little bit easier to use. And as we look out kind of into the future, I want to call out that we are working on kind of transfer ownership type features. This is a place we hear a lot of feedback from all of you around how we make sure that it is easy to move content when folks leave the company. And we'll be looking forward to sharing more about this in the near future. So with that out of the way, I'm going to turn it over to Trent for our main topic today on unlicensed user changes.
Great. Thanks, Stephen. Sorry. Is anyone, can you give me control here, Steve? Oh, there you go. I see it. Take control. It's working. Okay. Yeah. So, hey, folks. Good to be back here. Thanks for having me. I'm going to quickly run through today a little more about the unlicensed user accounts. So I'm going to start by talking about what is changing, and then I'll dive into what's not changing, because that's also a really important question we get a lot. I'll talk about how to prepare for this change, and then I'm going to spend a lot of time on the Ask Me Anything section to make sure we get any new questions answered for all you folks. So let's dive in. To start with, let's talk about what is changing.
It's like I right, because the one from last year is very different because
Thank you. So yeah, what is changing? To start with, I want to say that unlicensed accounts are going to be archived automatically. What this looks like is when the system identifies an unlicensed account, we're going to give you 60 days of a buffer time, and then that account can be put in a read-only mode on the 60th unlicensed day. After that, we'll have 33 more days in read-only mode before it will be officially archived on day 93. These accounts fall into two big buckets. The first is when the account's owner doesn't have a valid OneDrive license, and the second is when the account's owner has been deleted from Enter ID. And this is quite common when a user leaves the company. The account sticks around, and that's that second bucket I just mentioned. Let's talk about what is not changing. So the first big thing to understand is that compliance, all the compliance promises you get with Microsoft 365 and Purview, they are staying exactly the same. To name a few, eDiscovery will still work on archived or read-only unlicensed accounts. eDiscovery search and export will work out of the box without any extra steps. I will note that when you export from eDiscovery, it might take a little bit longer, but eDiscovery search and export will still work to the full extent. So your data is still eDiscoverable entirely. Retention policies are still fully honored. So if you have a retention policy saying you must keep certain content for X days or years, we will still keep it for X days or years. But if it's on an unlicensed account, it will likely be in the archive state because archive happens on the 93rd unlicensed day. Likewise, if you have a retention policy that says you must delete content on X date, that will also be fully honored. Even if the account is archived, that content will still get deleted by the system automatically. And last, legal holds and any kind of hold, again, fully honored. We will keep that for as long as the hold requires. Again, it will likely be in the archive state for the majority of that hold, but that's okay because eDiscovery will still work throughout. The retention duration of how long your content is kept because of these compliance promises we're keeping is largely unchanged. That's really key, that the retention duration is largely unchanged. So accounts whose owners have been deleted from Enter ID will have the exact same schedule as today. Again, they will be in the archive mode for a lot of that, but they will keep it for the full duration. This includes retention period, which is the setting you can change in the SharePoint Admin Center, retention policies, and then any holds. We honor those sequentially and to their fullest. And then for accounts whose owners are still in Enter ID, they will be archived and deprovisioned on the 93rd unlicensed day. That is the only change to the schedule, is when the owner is still in Enter ID but doesn't have a valid license. We are going to not only archive but also kick off the deprovisioning process on the 93rd unlicensed day. A deprovisioning process, just like owners who have been deleted, will fully honor the retention period, retention policies, and any holds. So again, once we kick off that deprovisioning on the 93rd licensed day, the duration will stay exactly the same as it would be today. How to prepare for this change? First, make sure you have fully understood and reviewed the unlicensed OneDrive accounts report. You can view that report in the SharePoint Admin Center, and here's a quick AK.ms link on the screen that you can jump directly to that report. In the past few months, we released a detailed reports page that gives you all of the accounts, even if they aren't 93 days unlicensed yet. It tells you if they're archived, why they're considered unlicensed, why they aren't being deleted, and when they are archived, it will give you the option to reactivate directly from that experience. So that's a good place to go explore fully. If you believe you have accounts in there that aren't unlicensed, then go export and understand the full reason of why we think they're unlicensed, and then reach out if you are having issues with that report. And then the last step to prepare is enable billing. Billing is enabled in the M365 Admin Center under the pay-as-you-go services. And billing gets you two things. One, it will allow you to reactivate accounts for 30 days from the archive state for a fee. And then two, as I mentioned on the previous slide, if the account has a user that's still in Enter ID, On the 93rd license day, we will just archive and not start deprovisioning if you have enabled billing. And then obviously, once you enable billing, you'll start getting billed for your unlicensed accounts, and that will extend for all of your unlicensed accounts in the archive state. So that was my full spiel. I actually wanted to take a lot of time now to answer questions. I saw we had a bunch in the chat, but I have not read them yet.
Yeah, I can help throw them your way, Trent.
Yeah, please.
So first question was from Tony Lawley. Tony, did you want to come off mute and ask the question, or I can just repeat it for Trent if you'd like?
Sure. Sorry about that. The question is, there is a retention first recycle bin, second recycle bin that used to occur. How does that impact with this?
Completely unchanged. It will be in the recycle bin for the same duration. It's possible the accounts will be in the archived state in the recycle bin. So when you pull them out of the recycle bin, they might still be archived, but the duration of the account being in the recycle bins will be exactly the same.
Thanks.
Cool. Next up was a question from Tyler Borchardt.
Yeah, thank you for your time this morning. I'm just curious what happens if an organization does not set up Microsoft 365 Archive. For example, I know we use at my organization Commvault Metallic, and my AR team told me there's direct conflicts and how they talk to each other, so they don't want it set up. So just kind of wondering what happens if we, in that case.
Got it. So I want to be really crisp here that the archiving of these accounts will happen automatically from the system, regardless of if you've enabled M365 Archive. M365 Archive, the enablement toggle you see today, really toggles your ability to archive SharePoint sites, and that's driven by your IT admin. The only choice you get on the unlicensed accounts is whether you want to enable billing. The accounts will be archived even if you don't enable M365 Archive.
Thank you for that clarification. Yeah, thank you.
Awesome. And then, yeah, litigation holds will still be honored and working fully within M365 if the account is archived.
Perfect. Next question was from Sulabh Gupta. Sulabh, if you're here.
I think I got the answer. It was similar to the question just asked. Thank you.
Cool. Awesome. And then the last kind of pre-submitted question, I think, was from Pierre Frechette. We see you off mute, but there's no audio coming through.
Oh, sorry for that. Can you hear me now?
Yep, yes. Working now.
Sorry. Yeah. The way we do user offboarding, unfortunately, in one of our instances, we might need to keep the users around for more than 90 days. So basically, I was just wondering if I could unlicense them essentially before that time, and it would fall into archiving. But just to confirm, if I could use content search still to essentially do if they wanted to recuperate some data and export the data. So just wondering if content search will still work even if the content is archived.
Yes, the content search feature in Purview, to be clear, will still work. It's the exact same as eDiscovery, the interface and the tech behind. So yes, that will still work.
Okay, another curiosity, just because I asked another follow-up question, is that let's say I delete the OneDrive before that 90-day, before it gets into archival, thus it will go to recycle bin. Can I restore it afterwards? And if so, would it go into like automatic archival?
So yes, you can restore it from the recycle bin, but if the account, even if in the recycle bin, if it's the 93rd unlicensed day, it will be put into the archive mode. So when you pull it back out, it will be archived.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
All right. Next up, I believe, is Joel.
Hi. We have thousands of these sites that are going to be archived. If an admin who doesn't know what he's doing turns on billing, and then we realize it and turn off billing, will billing be off, or are we? What happens there? We're gonna have to pay for that week where that idiot did that, or how's that gonna work?
That's a good question. So you can toggle off billing. I don't think it will retroactively bill you, but we do have terms in the terms of service that advise against toggling that on and off quickly. So I'd recommend you avoid doing that because it's technically against the terms of service. But yes, it's something you can do, and it will not retroactively bill you.
Thank you.
All right, taking a quick break from archive questions for a second. Raphael, did you want to ask your sync question?
Yes, hello everyone. This is Raphael speaking. I've been sent here by your colleague Robert Manoli from Microsoft Switzerland. So he has to take all the blame for you guys having me here. We're having quite some issues with users. We have like 3,000 users. And with the OneDrive client on Windows, we've recently moved quite a lot of files from file shares to SharePoint, and people are used to work in their Windows Explorer, and we've tried to address that, of course, but still they like to add shortcuts to their OneDrive. And there's this documented limit of 300K items that the OneDrive Windows client can kind of handle. And after that, it starts to spin endlessly. And we have quite some problems that the users, they don't know when they will hit that limit or get close to that limit or exceed that limit, or even if they exceeded that limit. So it's a usability thing. Where, yeah, and I wanted to ask you guys whether we're the only ones, whether our users are particularly untrained, or whether this is generally an issue, and how to tackle that, or how you are planning to tackle that.
We've been working on improvements to drive that number higher than 300,000. Apologies about my voice. And we actually have shipped a lot of those already, and 300,000 isn't a hard limit. So if you're seeing issues, I'd love to connect and actually us investigate what's going on in specific for your scenario, because we've made a lot of improvements already. We're not quite ready to bump the number higher in our documentation, and so we'd love to investigate what's going on.
Yeah, sure. I'd be happy to explain that to you.
Sure, I can drop my email in the chat.
Yeah, that would be great.
Perfect, thank you.
So I'll send you a mail. Thanks.
Great. Thank you, Gaia. All right, next question I believe was from Manfred, if you want to.
Yes.
Yeah, that's good.
We have about 600 OneDrive accounts with a retention period and 1,500 with a retention policy. As I understood, the retention period is not an issue because they will anyhow, when the period ends, they disappear. With the retention policy, that means there is no end date. Do I have to reactivate this unlicensed OneDrive account, or can I manage this directly in Microsoft 365 Archive? Reactivation costs 60 cents per gigabyte, as I remember.
Yes, that price for reactivation is correct. You should be able to manage retention policies directly from the Purview experience, and those will retroactively take effect. So you can go modify the policies, and they will affect the already archived accounts. You should not have to reactivate to modify those policies.
Oh, perfect. Thank you.
Yep.
All right, next up, we will go to Vijay.
Hello, everyone. In extension to Raphael's question, I was just wondering, does MS have any plans to maybe give warnings on the OneDrive client saying, whenever user syncs more than 300K items, does MS has any plans to, maybe give some warnings to the user saying that you have reached 300K limit and you might experience some slowness or some issues with the OneDrive client, and suggest them to, unstick few items
Yeah, we don't currently plan to show any type of warning. As I mentioned, our focus is really to bump that number higher. It's not a hard limit, so we don't want to. There's plenty of users who are syncing more than that number of files, and it's working well for them. So that's why we haven't shown a warning.
Okay, but I mean, now and then I often get tickets saying like, even though they are syncing, like maybe numbers which are a little higher than 300. As Rafael mentioned, that they often get that spinning thing on the OneDrive client. It says like processing, but it doesn't do anything.
So I'd love to investigate that. Okay. If you want to reach out as well.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Pierre, I think you had 2 questions in the chat. If we want to go back to you.
Yes, sorry, I know I'm asking a lot. I was just wondering, I saw the documentation, but the archival documentation has been updated, frequently, and we've been trying to keep up to date because granted it wasn't clear, several months ago, and now it's getting clearer. But just to be sure, anybody unlicensed before February 17th, every one of them, according to the report, is going to be archived on May 17th, right? Something along those lines. Is that it? May 16th?
Yeah, so real quick on that one. So first off, thank you. I appreciate your patience. I know we're updating the documentation frequently. Please keep listening there. We do update the documentation with more details as we get questions. So it's a great resource to look at on a recurring basis. The schedule you posted, the dates I believe are correct according to the documentation. What I will say is that the exact enforcement timeline is still changing a little bit. So we might be updating the documentation with newer dates in the future. They would not become more aggressive. So that date you should see as on the May 16th date, for example, it will be no earlier than May 16th where they all be finished. So I would keep an eye out on the documentation. We will be posting the dates because this is a slow rollout, but we will be posting the dates between when we start and when we finish for all of the accounts in the entire fleet. So definitely check the documentation. The dates might change, but yes, with those dates, once we update them, will be the final timeline by which all the accounts will be archived.
Okay, thank you. And just, I know you've talked to fees, but so can you confirm there's a one-time activation fee, basically of let's say I've got 4 terabytes in there to activate storage, I would be charged a certain amount, which is going to be higher per gig on activation, and essentially afterwards there would be an ongoing monthly charge for any amount of gigabytes archived?
Yeah, so let me walk through that scenario a little bit more in detail. So let's say I have 10 accounts that are all 1 terabyte each. What will happen is when I enable billing that day moving forward, all 10 accounts will start getting, assuming they're all archived and unlicensed, of course, they will all start getting billed on a monthly basis at the 5 cent per gigabyte fee. So it's 5 cents times 10 terabytes is the monthly fee for that storage. Because I've enabled billing, I can then go and reactivate the accounts that I want to go and access again. Let's say I picked one account, one of the 1 terabyte accounts that I want to reactivate. I would pay 60 cents per gigabyte for that 1 terabyte to reactivate the account. That reactivation would come with a 30-day window to use that account. I can move the data, I can delete data to reduce the size, I can copy it somewhere else, whatever I want to do. And after 30 days, the system will automatically put it back into the archive state. So it won't be a recurring fee by default, but if you want to reactivate it again the next month, you could do so and pay another 60 cents per gigabyte.
Oh, okay, thank you. And I see that this is recorded, which is great, which is I'll be able to share with other people.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll take a moment. This will be recorded, as you mentioned, and it gets uploaded to the M365 Community Learning channel where you can get our past office hours as well. So yeah, it's a great resource. Let's see, I think we've got another question that was a little bit earlier in the chat, again from Tyler, if you want to ask it.
All right, yeah, just one more question. It's more of a general one. I was just wondering, when something goes on litigation, hold like a user account, is there a license that remains assigned to it? I didn't find anything related to that in the documentation. I have a coworker that works as Commvault Metallic that said in the litigation process that those accounts will remain or keep a license, and that's what we're relying on basically for archival of OneDrive profiles that are on litigation hold.
The question I'm not sure I fully grok, but it's up to you whether you keep a license on the user or not. If you do, then the automatic archival unlicensed account shouldn't affect that account. But yeah, we don't manage the license on your behalf, if that's your question.
Okay. Okay. Then I'm not sure where you got that from. All right. Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, Pierre, go ahead.
Me again. Sorry for that archival thing. Let's say I want to free up an E3, but give something least expensive or an E5. Can I assign essentially a OneDrive for Business Plan 1 or 2 to basically not get archived and keep that available?
Yes, any license, I believe the ones you mentioned include that. So yes, any license that has OneDrive as a part of the offering can be used instead of an E3 or an E5 to keep the account in the licensed state, yes, but for cheaper. So yes.
Okay.
Sulab, you're up next.
Yeah, I think it was mentioned that all unlicensed OneDrive before Feb 17 would be archived eventually. Would all of them be discoverable through Purview, irrespective of whether they are under a retention or a legal hold or not?
Yes. Yep. Archive does not interfere at all with the e-discovery process. So whether they're archived or read-only or not enforced yet, yes, e-discovery will work.
Okay. And there's no steps that we need to take at this point with regards to setting up the M365 archive on our site for that to work.
Correct. So there is an enablement toggle in the M365 Admin Center to enable M365 Archive. That is aimed at SharePoint sites. So if you turn that on, you can then go archive SharePoint sites as an IT admin. This only affects OneDrive accounts, what we're talking about today. And the OneDrive accounts will get archived for you. You do not have to enable any archive feature to have that happen. And you can't turn it off, unfortunately. So those accounts will get archived on your behalf by the service.
Thank you.
Yep.
All right. And next up is Catherine.
Hi, building up on this last question, will the e-discovery also work if the site are in no access, are locked? So we are planning to lock the site really so the people have time to check that the site will soon not be accessible anymore. So we wanted to have them not only read-only, but really no access.
Your question is, will no access still work with e-discovery?
Yes.
I believe it does, but I'm not an expert there on the e-discovery side. That's a little orthogonal to my expertise area of the unlicensed enforcement. I think it does, but you might want to double check that with some e-discovery experts.
Okay. Thank you.
Of course.
All right. Next up is Manfred.
I have one question about the Microsoft 365 archive fees. In the past, the storage of sites and OneDrives was free, and the reactivation was 60 cents per gigabyte. Now I found some messages in the message center that soon the storage will cost for unlicensed OneDrive accounts and SharePoint sites 5 cents per month per gigabyte. And the reactivation of SharePoint sites is free, but not for unlicensed OneDrive accounts. It makes it very complicated for us. Why is it that complex, or do you plan to change something in the future?
We don't have. Sorry, go for it.
Yeah, I think the general comment there is that SharePoint and OneDrive Archive are different products. They have different licensing requirements. They're meant to drive different kinds of behaviors, and so that's why those are different, even though it shares the same name. So apologies for the complexity, I suppose, but the sort of leeway on the restore for reactivation for SharePoint is different than what we're targeting for OneDrive.
Great. I think we're out of questions at the moment in the chat. Anyone else have other questions for Trent and the team or the broader OneDrive product group right now? Matt, I saw you just dumped a question in the chat. If you want to ask it verbally as well, feel free.
Sure. Sorry about that. I hope this isn't out of bounds for this conversation, and if it is, I apologize. The users at the place I'm supporting are having an issue where their OneDrive shared files are starting to show up as links instead of normal file folders in their File Explorer, if that makes sense. And it seems to have been sporadic. It's inconsistent. Like some people can access them just fine as a air quote normal file folder in File Explorer, and others are seeing the same folder as a link. And what we're seeing is some people who had seen it as a normal folder when they have to get a new computer or something like that are then seeing it as a link. We've even seen cases where something that was appearing as a link has now turned back into a folder. And many of the users I support are not what I would consider tech savvy. And the link going to a browser is sometimes more than they can bear. Is that something that I can ask about in this call?
Yeah, I can take that one.
Awesome.
So yeah, we are aware of the behavior, and I know it's inconsistent. It's a result of some changes we're making in the backend service, and that's why you'll see it become a link, and then we repair that once some of the changes in the backend are done. And so we're actively trying to make sure that everyone who's in that state goes back to a syncing folder as soon as possible.
Oh, perfect.
And yeah, in the meantime, accessing through the web is the recommended state if a user has a folder that has become a link in File Explorer Finder.
Okay, perfect. You mentioned the web being the preferred link, so the fact that we've found a solution that is a mapped network drive, we should not be doing that. We should continue to do the web-based interface. Is that correct?
Temporarily, while those folders are links, yeah, you would want to access that content through the web.
Okay, awesome. Thank you very much.
Yep.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for bringing it. Other questions from folks? Yeah, Jennifer, go for it.
I was typing in the chat, but I might as well just ask it. Do you guys have any documentation on the naming of the add shortcut to OneDrive? Because I've noticed that like the first time you link something, it puts let's say it's a library, the library and then the site name. And then if there's already a library in there with that name, it just puts the library name. Is there a way to get the logic behind how the folders are named when you add the shortcut? Because it's, not 100% clear how that's done? Or is that one of the things that are being adjusted as well at this time?
Yeah, there's a change rolling out. I think we're going to be talking about it in one of the next sessions on Add to OneDrive. That makes sure we always have the site name and the folder in the shortcut names. I'm going back to its site name and let's see.
Well, mine's got library, then site name after it. Are you going to flip it or just keep building on that?
I'm double checking. I don't know if we have Leisha or Carter on the call. We'll double check. I know there's a change rolling out. We'll type in the chat once we have confirmation on what the name scheme is.
Yeah. And then as well, whether just some information would be nice about what happens to the ones that are already in OneDrive, whether, there'll be changes or your recommendations for people to unlink and relink or whatever. That'd be great.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, there was a message center. If you have access to the message center in Microsoft 365 Admin Center, there was a post on March 7th about the naming convention.
Oh, perfect.
For folder shortcuts.
I did get behind in my checking, so thanks for the notes.
It's very easy too.
Yeah, thanks for chiming in with that, Joel. Other questions from folks? No questions off limit. Worst case, we're just going to tell you no, or that we're not going to answer you today. But yeah, that's what we're here for. Pierre, take it away. MVP today.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm just and again familiarizing myself with updates to the documentation. But I know you're saying that if a site is locked, basically after 60 days, the options are to license or run PowerShell to unlock. But does PowerShell actually require to have a license anyway, or it's it's circumventing having not the license active assigned to the user?
PowerShell will still work to remove the read-only state after the 60th day. You're more than welcome to remove it. It's there to help ease any end users who might be affected by this. So you're welcome to unread-onlyify them for the last 33 days, but just realize that on the 93rd day, it will get archived.
Okay, thanks.
Yep.
Any final questions before we wrap up for today? Yeah, Kathy, go for it.
Yes, could you describe a little bit more about the accounts whose owners are still in Entra ID? You said that they'll be archived and deprovisioned. Can you talk about that a little bit more? Like, is the account unlicensed? I guess I just need a little more clarification around that, please.
Yeah, for sure. No worries at all. So the scenario here is when a user is in Entra ID, but they don't have a valid license anymore. And we've seen this happen when admins just remove the license, or they're renewing licenses and haven't added it back. But if they don't have a valid OneDrive license for more than 60 days, then they're going to start being put in the read-only mode. And then on the 93rd day, they will get archived. And then if billing is not set up, they will also get deprovisioned, which will then honor all of the retention things I mentioned before. So the scenario here is today, when the user doesn't have a license, we actually don't enforce it. And so we are enforcing now that they must have a license, and on the 93rd day, they'll get archived. So I hope that clarified that it's not all users that are going to get archived. It's only if they don't have a license.
So the deprovisioning, is that of the OneDrive account or of the actual Entra ID?
Just the account. Yes, these enforcement actions just take effect on the OneDrive account. The user and Entra ID will remain, because it's okay to have unlicensed users. They just can't have active OneDrive accounts.
Okay, because what we do is when someone leaves, we go through and strip out the license, and or if their account's disabled, we will strip out the license. So I just want to make sure the account itself isn't being deleted. So thank you.
Yep, no, the account will stay there. The user itself will stay there. The OneDrive account will get enforced.
Thank you.
Pierre, take it away.
Yeah, so just to confirm that what reports as duplicate essentially in the report are users who are primary site collection owner of basically another person's OneDrive, right? And they would have themselves a OneDrive too.
Yeah, so it isn't always necessarily somebody else's OneDrives. Sometimes from multi-geo moves that are configured in different ways, or if a user leaves the company and comes back, there's a whole host of edge cases of why a user might kind of have two accounts that they're the primary site collection admin of. But yes, if that's the case, then we consider the primary one, the default document library, as the one that is licensed, and then the other ones we consider as duplicate. And sometimes there's even more than one duplicate. Sometimes there's 3 or 4 or 5 accounts associated with one user, and then the primary one we consider as licensed, and the other 2, 3, 4 we consider as unlicensed duplicates.
Oh, okay, thank you. Because it's at some point we're not doing it now, but in some instances, like the manager was granted access via the primary site collection field. Where contrary. Unlike the, let's say, out-of-the-box behavior of secondary site collection admin. Do you have a tip then to try to identify the user to which the OneDrive really belongs to? Like, is that something I should parse as part of the UPSA? Like, basically, I was just trying to understand, because we still have a lot for all of these duplicates account, trying to pinpoint, is that user in the user field, to which site essentially does the original account belong to, if I might say so.
Got it. I believe that's something you can query from Enter ID, but the non-primary accounts are the ones that are called out in the detailed report page.
Yeah.
So at least there you can use process of elimination to figure out which one you need to go take action on. Yeah, and for granting access to the manager or anybody to somebody else's OneDrive account, I highly recommend that you add them as a secondary site collection admin and never the primary. The primary should always be the user that's using that account.
No, I understand, and that's what's being changed partially, but just wanted to confirm the duplicate aspect of it because I could have licensed a service account and assigned it to any offboarding user essentially.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Pierre. Manfred, you're up again.
Yes, another question about the active users with no license. We have the Microsoft 365 archive enabled. That means that their OneDrive will be moved automatically to the Microsoft 365 archive soon. And after that, if I delete the Entra account, is the archived account then also automatically deleted for this user?
So a couple of things there. One, you mentioned that M365 Archive is enabled for you, which fantastic. It's a great feature. Unfortunately, that toggle does not affect whether your unlicensed accounts will get archived. Even if M365 Archive is not enabled, your unlicensed OneDrive accounts will be archived. And then your question was also around, I apologize, I lost my train of thought. Your question.
If I delete the entry, the AD account, is then the associated archived OneDrive account also deleted or not?
Yes, just like it is today. If you delete the Enter ID account, the OneDrive account associated with that user will also be deleted. Once enforcement fully rolls out of unlicensed OneDrive accounts, if you have an active user with billing not enabled, but you have an active user with no license for 93 days, that account will get archived and deprovisioned on the 93rd day. So that will happen for you. That deprovisioning will kick off for you on the 93rd day, unless you have a license or you have billing enabled.
Yeah, Joel, I think you're next.
Yeah, so I was looking at the blog that you posted, and the image in the blog that shows where to turn on the billing, it looks like it's in the Admin Center under Org Settings Syntax. We don't use Syntax for anything now, and I don't see it I don't see it available there. I looked on my dev tenant and just to make sure where there's a global admin, I don't see it there either. So does that just show up once you have an archived OneDrive account?
It's a good question, and I think it's actually a change in the branding of that page. So the page should be available to you under Microsoft Admin Center Setup, and then pay-as-you-go services. I'll put that in the chat in a second, but okay. I believe it should be there for you to find even before the accounts are archived.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, let's see. And I think, Anne, you had a question in chat if you wanted to ask it over the call, or we can take it in chat if you prefer.
Hi. Yeah, so the announcement about removing EEU, everyone except external users, sounds pretty straightforward, that it's going to pull that from anybody who granted it at the root or their document library associated with OneDrive. But, we did a pretty massive migration from Stream Classic, and that assigned EEU a lot. So just to make sure that those videos are still going to be good and still have everyone except external users assigned on that, and then wanted to also double check that it'll still be possible for people to assign that permission to files and folders afterwards. And then lastly, can we go back and reassign it if we have any of those edge cases where it was done sort of on purpose? Thanks.
Yeah, a couple pieces there. This one I can actually answer, or at least mostly answer. So first, for the stream classic videos you're talking about, I assume the permissions are on the videos themselves, not the libraries, correct?
Should be. Yeah, it was done like an item level permission set. Yeah.
Yeah, so that won't be impacted at all. So those will continue to work as expected. And post this change, you'll continue to be able to add them to files directly. We're actually working on a feature timelined a little bit later this semester, like next 6 months or so. That'll also kind of have a new version of this feature as well. More on that later as we get closer. And then as far as kind of root and document library, it will prevent them from being re-added as well. So the goal is to kind of, if you want stuff to be shared broadly within your organization, you should generally be putting it in SharePoint, not adding the kind of EEU, everyone except external users claim and permission to the entire OneDrive.
Okay, thanks.
Michael, I think you're next.
Yeah, I have a quick question to them still unlicensed OneDrive accounts, because we have the situation from time to time, the users that left our organization, they're coming back, and we're usually taking the same account that they had before and just reactivating it. And assuming that we won't enable the billing and we'll just let these accounts be in the, let's say, not active archive, what will happen when we will re-enable this account and we'll reassign the license to it, if it will be working perfectly fine, or will we get any issues?
It should be working perfectly fine as long as the user is assigned as the primary site collection admin and the account is that person's default document library. So it should work as long as the wire up is done correctly. Sometimes there's an edge case where there's a mismatch, and if it is not working, if you think there's an issue there, you can. I believe there's actually a self-service support tool that you can help use to fix that mismatch. So. It should work, and if it's getting wrongfully enforced, you can probably self-service fix that.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much.
Of course.
Yeah, I think. No, David, go ahead. Never mind.
Hi, thanks. We're just kind of scratching the surface of Microsoft 365, and we're looking to implement OneDrive. We're looking into doing just simple making the users home folders into OneDrive. And I was wondering, are there any classes or seminars that are like a from scratch kind of setup of OneDrive?
I think so. One resource I'd recommend checking out is the Microsoft 365 Community Learning Channel. In a particular interest will be, there should be recorded sessions from last year's Microsoft 365 Community Conference, which I believe had some of these kind of like OneDrive 101 deployment type talks. Guy, are there other resources I'm not thinking of that are worth David looking at?
Yeah, for in terms of sync client deployment, we have this documentation, which I'll paste in the chat, that we refer to as Sync Ideal State, which is a great starting place in terms of how we recommend configuring and deploying OneDrive Sync, including backup with KFM. So I'll paste that in the chat. And then, Kayla, I don't know if there's anything else you want to mention.
No, I was thinking primarily the documentation on setting up the Sync Ideal State.
Awesome, we'll put that in the chat.
Great, thank you so much.
Yeah, Stephen, and I'll also paste migration manager details in case there's any migration involved for user data and things like that as well.
Perfect. Yeah, David, we're going to send you home with homework, and then if there's anything that is missing, you should come back and let us know so we can look and get that added.
All right, will do. Thanks.
All right, Florian, I believe you're next.
Thank you very much. Just a little question, perhaps a little off topic. At this point with
like E3 licenses or user licenses, you get the 1 terabyte of SharePoint, of OneDrive storage space, and then you get an additional 10 gigs of SharePoint storage space. Do you know by any chance if Microsoft is planning on increasing the per user SharePoint storage space at all?
I don't think we have any plans on increasing that 10 gigabytes per user license in the near future. I think it's fairly static for now.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yep.
Okay, I think we can move then to our final slide. Rob, if you're still here, do you want to walk through that?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And thank you, Trent and team, for joining us today to cover today's topic. And of course, thank you all who joined today. And we're patient with some of the tech issues that we had this morning, but we will follow up with everyone once the on-demand is ready to view. So stay tuned for that. I'll be making sure that everyone is aware of when that video is up and ready to go. And then, of course, before we wrap up, you could actually now go and register for next month's office hours, where Kayla will be leading our special topic around KFM sync deployment on April 16th, 8 a.m. Pacific time. So head over to aka.ms/OneDrive office hours to register today. And we look forward to seeing you all there. So thank you all for joining, and we'll touch base soon. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you all.
Thanks all.